don't
You're good. We can cut this out. So go ahead.
don't feel, I know you're hesitant, but don't be hesitant with these questions because your audience also doesn't know. So you being vulnerable to ask the questions is exactly what they need. So don't worry about it.
Perfect. Perfect. And then I might throw in a question on intermittent fasting because I know you had that topic on your list. So just for curiosity's sake, but yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Euphoric, the podcast. We have a special guest in today, Dr. E, who's going to tell us a little bit about functional medicine and how we can improve our well-being, even when the doctors might have given up on you. So, Dr. E, please tell us a little bit more about you and what you do.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm really honored to speak to your audience. I'm going to tell you a little bit of my background story because the origin story is going to explain a lot about how I got here and why this is relevant to your listeners. So I promise this is not going to be a boring autobiography. So I started off a company called EG Healthcare, which is primary care. So just imagine your doctor's office, pediatric, adults, that's our office. And I did what every provider does. You come in, you do your annual visit, I do your labs. And you could say to me, hey, I don't feel well, but if your labs came back fine, I was like, you're fine. You're good. I'll see you next year. And I had absolutely no idea how disempowering it was for people who didn't feel well to be told they're fine because I'm doing what I learned, run the labs, everything's fine. And then was often the case, I had a personal medical journey, my wife's medical journey, that really we could not find the answer in conventional medicine. And mind you, I'm in conventional medicine. She's in conventional medicine. We actually met in the ER working together. All our friends are in medicine. So we have access to everything. And all they could offer us was like heavy duty medication. So this is pre-internet as it is now. So we had to kind of literally find our way through it. And we stumbled upon functional medicine, truly stumbled. And I was like, this is not going to work because it's not anything we learned in school. And so we did it. We changed our nutrition, we did our supplements, and we got our life back. If you're ever bored and you want to hear more details, it's in my book. It's free on Kindle. I'm not trying to plug the book. I'm just trying to not waste your time. So the bottom line is I realized that there was a whole side to medicine that I was not aware of. And I started taking one class and another class and another class, and ultimately led to getting the PhD in integrative medicine and developing the new method. And the tagline is, the reason it's called the new method is because my patients always know, right? They know something's up. They know something's wrong. My patients always knew that you knew there was a better way. And I empower patients to realize that their symptoms are not in their head. So the origin story is kind of, it's not just because, I went to school. I lived it. I lived the limitations of conventional medicine. So I'm going to be quiet now and see what your next question is.
Oh, amazing. Well, I've got a lot that I'm brewing up here for our discussion today, but I think it just reminds me of something that has really changed in my life and my belief system, especially as I changed my relationship with alcohol, is like, I now believe almost anything is possible. And I think I came previously from a very skeptic and almost judgmental, super analytical place of what was possible. And I almost see this like this parallel in healthcare or in our, how we have our well-being and stuff like that, because I think that once we think that everything is so scientific and every answer should be found, and if your doctor doesn't find it and all this stuff, then it's like, oh, well, then there's nothing there, or there's nothing more I can do. And it just goes to show that like we're always evolving our understanding of our mind, of the body, of the world, you know what I mean? And that one system doesn't have it locked in stone in time, and to be a little bit more open-minded, because that just means that there's more possibility. There's another stone unturned, that we have. And so to never give up hope, there's always a solution out there. And I'm so excited to talk to you to find some of those solutions.
Yeah. And I like the way you phrased it, because it's not either or, because there are times when you definitely need the tools that are in conventional medicine. And then there are times when you need the tools that are in other types of practices. So it's about, like you said, leaving no stone unturned and using all the various tools for whatever is going on. So I love the way you phrased that.
Yeah. So what are the most typical symptoms or problems or issues that you're seeing from your clients that you see maybe conventional medicine isn't able to quite solve for them or give them some kind of diagnoses or answers? Like, what is the most common things you're seeing?
So I'll tell you, my patients fall on a spectrum. They're either the patient that comes in and says, I really don't feel well, like everything hurts. I have brain fog and my joints hurt and everything, something must be wrong. And I've been to like 26 different providers and they all tell me I'm fine. So that's this part of the spectrum. And all the way on the other end are patients who already have several issues, usually autoimmune issues, other chronic illnesses. And they're like, I wish there was a better way besides my 10 medication list. The difference between patient A that just doesn't feel good and patient B that already has 10 diagnoses is just a matter of time. You take someone who's not feeling good and you continuously say you're fine, eventually the labs will become not fine. And then that patient will be like, oh my God, I've had lupus all along. I've had rheumatoid arthritis all along. Why didn't anyone see it? Because it wasn't in your blood yet. And so this is the crux of the problem. That when the patient doesn't feel well, if the blood work is not what we call seroconverted yet, if there's no positive in the blood work, we say you're fine. But the symptoms indicate that I'm not fine. But we don't have the tools in conventional medicine to be like, oh, you're pre-autoimmune, you're cooking rheumatoid arthritis, you're cooking lupus. So we just have, it's like, it's either a positive or it's a negative. So so that is the type of patient that comes into me. So many of my patients, which is why I wrote, the book, It's Not in Your Head, is to let people know that that's good. Always, if you don't feel well, always go to your primary. Never skip that step. Never self-diagnose. Do all the tests, go to see all the specialists. But if you're told consistently that you're fine and you don't feel fine, that is the time to turn to functional medicine and see, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah. So I think we've been hearing a lot more about autoimmune diseases and just a lot more prevalence of that being discovered or something like that, whereas maybe even 40 years ago, I don't know if it was being talked about or not. So can you explain for the beginner, for anyone who has no idea, me included, like what falls under autoimmune, what's happening in the body when we have an autoimmune disorder or issue, like just explain from the get-go.
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. So autoimmune, so auto means self and immune is the immune system. So it means that your immune system is designed to protect you from foreign invaders, right? So if you catch a cold, your immune system takes a few days, it gathers up all its soldiers, its white blood cells, and then eventually you overcome that cold. That's your immune system attacking the cold. An infection on your skin, it may be red for a little while, and then it scabs over. That's your immune system attacking whatever's happening there. Autoimmunity means your immune system made a mistake and now is turning on you. It's turning on to your organs. And so if it's turning on your joints, it's rheumatoid arthritis. If it's turning systemically, it could be lupus. If it's turning on your thyroid, it's Hashimoto's. So it is it's a mistake in the immune system where it looks at the parts of the self and thinks it's an external invader and starts to create antibodies to it, which you can imagine is rather tricky because now what medications do we give? We can't, like when you have a bacteria, you give antibiotics, you give medication to kill the bacteria. If you have certain viruses to a certain extent, you can give antivirals, some limitations to that, but just so we get the concept. So if we are attacking the self, we can't give medication to end the self. So it's a very tricky place to be in. So the medications that are given are just to suppress the immune system. Well, the immune system's out of whack, so let's just calm it down. So we suppress the immune system. And that's a problem because now we have a suppressed immune system, so we can't fight off colds and stuff. So it's a very complicated cycle to be in when we have an autoimmune issue.
Yeah. And, I noticed that the prevalence is happening at a higher rate to women than men, and obviously more and more as the data and information comes out. But how would someone start to even open their mind to be like, maybe this brain fog, maybe this acne, maybe this, other symptoms that I'm having are even autoimmune? Like, what are the things to look out for? Because like maybe some of us have even just been like, this is what it feels like to be an adult.
Yes. Oh my God, that's a great thing. So a lot of people have normalized not feeling well. So, you're in your 50s. I'm 51, by the way. You're in your 50s, you're in your 60s, and everyone doesn't feel well. Your best friends don't feel well. Maybe they're on a medication. So when you don't feel well, you're like, well, this is normal. This is what 50 is supposed to feel like. And that's wrong. Do not normalize not feeling well. It's just, it feels normal because everyone's not well. It is not a natural part of aging to constantly be unwell. It's not a natural part of aging. So you asked a lot of questions in there. You asked about prevalence. part of the reason that the prevalence is higher is because we are exposed to more things that create inflammation. We are exposed to more things that disrupt our hormones. We eat worse than we've ever eaten before. And so our immune system, our entire system cannot manage the constant assault. It's constant. Every food that we eat is nonsense. The things we put on our skin, the thing that's in our air. So it's really a constant assault on the system. And if you have any type of genetic kind of predisposition for an issue, this assault is going to turn that on. So let me tell you what I mean by that. Like, we have certain genes right? You have brown eyes, you have green eyes, they are your genes. But certain genes you have like a tendency towards. Like, grandma had diabetes. Maybe I have the genetic tendency, what we call a predisposition to diabetes. But you still have to do the thing to get the diabetes, right? You still have to eat the sugar to get the diabetes. If you don't eat it, you won't get grandma's diabetes. So just because you have the genetic predisposition doesn't mean you'll turn on the gene. So let's just say now you have other predispositions for different diseases. Again, if your life is full of toxins and it's primarily in the standard American diet, you will turn on the gene for that disease.
And so what does that feel like for someone who is experiencing this, but maybe not at the stage of having, debilitating symptoms yet? Like, what are some of the more light symptoms that you're seeing?
Brain fog, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, midday fatigue, post meal fatigue, joint pain, difficulty sleeping, hot flashes. You think it's hormones, probably isn't. Skin is not the way it used to be. I think I covered a lot of systems there. Stomach bloating. So just this general I don't feel good-itis. If you ignore that long enough, it will become a disease.
Yeah. And so, like you mentioned that there's certain stages where you could go to your doctor and take all the tests and everything's going to look just dandy. So if someone's in that boat, you kind of mentioned some of the factors that contribute to this. It's basically being alive in this century, at this year, like you're going to absorb these toxins. So it's kind of like, it's not just that the hype has gone up, like we've changed the way our lifestyles are so much over the last 100 years or so in order to have this higher prevalence. But now, like, what would you suggest for someone at that like stage A category? How can they take back their life? What are some of the things that you would suggest maybe at a like at home or a self application type method to start changing some of these things? And are there specific like just principles that hold for every kind of autoimmune disease? Or it's like, okay, if you have this one, try this, or like, how would you manage that?
Yeah. Okay. Awesome question. So always, I know I've repeated myself, but this is really critical. Don't skip the first test. You must get, because you don't want to say, oh, I sound just like my grandma or my best friend and she has Hashimoto's, I must have Hashimoto's. Meanwhile, you're walking around with an anemia. So always get your testing first. Don't get frustrated when they tell you everything is normal. That's a good thing. You're not sick. That's good. That's awesome. So the next thing you have to do, always, you must start with nutrition. Do not go out to buy a supplement. Do not spend your money on extra tests yet, like mold and Lyme. Not yet. Don't go there first. If you are still consuming the standard American diet, do not waste your money anywhere else, because there is no supplement on the planet that is going to work if you're still eating McDonald's. Like, it's just not happening. Sorry, McDonald's. I just chose that one. So if you're eating standard American diet, if you're eating pasta with a glass of wine for dinner, if you're eating, all the things that we associate with the standard American diet, you're eating high carb, high fat, high fructose corn syrup. If you're eating all of that, that is where you have to start. A lot of people want to skip that step. They're like, oh, I saw this supplement on, and it said, if you take it, you take this probiotic. Like, all the supplements are great. They're awesome. They will not work if you don't do this basic thing. And this is the hardest part. No one wants to give up their favorite food. And so you have to make a decision. And I think this will really resonate with your particular audience. You have to make that decision of what's more important. Does this hamburger, French fry, pizza conglomeration more important for you than feeling better? And for some people, yes, the answer is yes. I really want to enjoy my food and I don't want to limit my food. Awesome. That's an empowered conversation that you want to have. But you need to know that you will not feel well. And if you're okay making that decision, like I just had lunch with someone earlier and he's like, I'm really lactose intolerant, but every once in a while I really want an ice cream sundae. And I look at the sundae and I say to myself, am I willing to stay at him for the next 4 hours attached to the bathroom? And sometimes I say yes. And that's an empowered decision. Go ahead, enjoy your ice cream. You're going to the bathroom. That's fine too. So I'm not judging. If you want the standard American diet, it's important for you. I'm out all the time. I like to hang out with my friends. Awesome. Then let go of the desire of feeling better. Like let it go. It's not happening, and just be empowered in your choice. But if you want to feel better, you have to let go of the standard American diet. Standard American diet comes with standard American diseases: diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, heart attack, stroke. It goes hand in hand. So you have to choose the side. And this is really, really important. And I think your audience is probably the strongest people on the planet. Anyone who overcomes any type of addiction or habit are the strongest humans on the planet. You guys can do this. You know what it looks like. And, alcohol, like food, is everywhere, right? Alcohol is at every celebration. Alcohol is at every dinner. Alcohol is everywhere. And so is like bad food. It's everywhere. So let's celebrate with a cake. Let's have more apps. So your audience is really familiar with what it looks like to have to make that decision over and over and over again. And that is what it takes. That is your starting point when it comes to feeling better. And I just wanted to say that if you notice, I said nothing about weight. I really don't care about your weight. I have patients who are very thin who don't feel well. And I have patients who are very heavy who already made the change, and 1 month in, they've only lost 4 pounds, but they feel great. So this is not a weight conversation. It's not a size conversation. It's an inflammation conversation.
Yeah. So we kind of looked over the foods and obviously the style of diet to avoid. And so now when you're bringing the good stuff in, what does that look like for you and your patients?
Okay, bringing stuff in, like what do you want to bring in?
What nutrition to eat?
Okay, what should you eat, right? People ask us what should we eat? So it's really basic. If you're reading the ingredients on something, that's not food. That's ingredients. That's a chemistry set, right? So what you want to do is look at your plate, and the first thing you do is you need to have colors on it. So it needs to be plant-based. Now, notice I said plant-based. That does not mean vegan. I happen to be a big fan of eating animal protein unless you have an ethical issue with it. So plant-based means that you are choosing to eat plants because you know that they are medicine for you. If French fries and McDonald's is poison, plants are medicine. So you're going to look at your plate and you're going to say, do I have colors here? And it doesn't mean you have to have the whole rainbow every day. Today you'll have some red, tomorrow you'll have some yellow, but you're going to purposely have a conversation about the color of the plants on your plate. And that is going to be the significant part of your plate. And then if you're not ethically against it, you're going to put a good quality animal protein in there. Don't really care what it is. Preferably if it's going to be red meat, it's going to be grass-fed, quality, a piece of animal protein. If you're ethically against that, then you need to get a different source of protein and fat in there. And that is your plate. I don't care how many calories it is. I don't care how often you eat that. But if that is what your plate looks like, you're in the zone.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's definitely helpful. And so when the nutrition is something that is getting to be worked on, what would be some of the other next steps that you would recommend?
Okay, so when we work with our patients, the very first thing that we do, and I recommend this for patients, is we really have a line item of all their symptoms. We actually have software that tracks it. So we go 1 to 4, headaches over 3, joint pain is a 2, and you want to write everything down. Even things that you think are not connected. I'm ringing in my ears, my eyes dripping, whatever. Write it all down, quantify it. Then do at least 30 days. I mean, I want this to be a lifetime, but at least 30 days of nutritional overhaul. And pay attention to which symptoms improved. 50%, more than 50, but I'm going to be conservative. 50% of you will not need to do anything else after that. You will feel amazing. You'll be like, this is great. I've never felt better in my life. I only lost 3 pounds, but I've never felt better in my life. And then you could slowly start the reintroduction game. Like, oh, you know what? Let me put, I don't know, pasta back in my life. And then you get like, wow, every time I eat pasta, I'm exhausted and my stomach's bloating, pasta comes out, right? So if you're feeling great just with a nutritional intervention, you now have to kind of like find the things that maybe and, get you something. Maybe your migraine got back worse. Maybe the ringing in the ears got back. So pay attention to every single thing. It's not just belly, it's skin, it's brain fog, it's all of it. Now, for those of you who did the work, maybe you're feeling a little bit better or not better at all. That is when you start looking at testing. Only then, mold testing, Lyme testing. And I can't really tell you which one, because it really is dependent on which symptoms, how the patient's presenting, the patient's life. But that is when you start saying, okay, I'm clean. It's been 30, 60, 90 days. I'm on point nutritionally. I'm moving every day. I'm getting sleep better. And I just don't feel better. That's when you start looking at other sources of I don't feel gooditis, which is a different source of toxins. Do I have mold toxicity? Is there a Lyme happening? Are my hormones out of whack? That's when you go to testing.
Okay. And so, especially as women, like our hormones are obviously very nuanced and complicated. And a lot of the original science of health studies were mostly studying men. So there's probably a whole nuanced conversation to have when we're looking at like women's hormonal health. And so do you see like that women make up a bigger percentage of people who suffer from X versus Y or anything like that, or any kind of special consideration to make based on your cycle and the hormones at play, or maybe some hormones that are thrown way off because of the modern American diet, or anything just specific to women and their hormonal health?
I would say that a lot of times people think it's their hormones, but it's not their hormones. And a lot of times, let me quantify that. So, for example, women with PCOS, so our younger premenopausal women, yes, their hormones are imbalanced, but that's not the root of their issue. The root of the issue is because they have an excess carbs, creates the hormonal imbalance, creates that elevation of testosterone. So the problem is not really hormonal. Like, yes, their hormones are off, but the problem is nutritional. So a lot of the things that we think are hormonal are actually nutritional. Now, for my postmenopausal women, of course, there's no question that that is truly a hormone change. It's post hormones. We're not producing the same hormones, but not all of your symptoms that you could swear are hormonal are actually not hormonal. I have so many patients like, oh my God, I have hot flashes. We stop drinking wine and the hot flashes go away, right? Or people say, they have brain fog or insomnia and they think it's because of their hormones. Well, we cut the carbs out from dinner. We wait 3 hours before we go to sleep. Again, no alcohol, and they're sleeping like babies. So a lot of the things that we have attached to what it means to be postmenopausal is actually not hormonal. Now, that doesn't mean there's so many reasons why to get hormone replacement therapy, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. But before you run there, again, try to clean up your nutrition to actually see, you'd be amazed how many symptoms you would swear are hormonal and they're not, they're nutritional. So before we start down that road, you want to clean that up also. In fact, I won't give any of my patients BHRT unless they do the work first.
So you also talk about fibromyalgia in your work, and my mother-in-law, for example, has fibromyalgia. What would you say to anyone who's been diagnosed with that or is going through that condition, and how could your method help them?
Oh my God. Half of your audience is going to hate me for saying this. I get like the most static for this. Okay, so you have to listen to after the next sentence. The first sentence will irritate you, but you have to hear me out because I am on your side, people. I am on your side. So here it is. Fibromyalgia is absolutely not an acceptable diagnosis. Okay? For those of you who agree with me, awesome. For those of you who don't agree, hang tight before you start typing your hate mail. I didn't say it's not real. I didn't say you don't feel the symptoms. I didn't say it's not in your head. They are mother effing real. You feel horrible. Nobody knows that more than me. I know you. I know your pain. But fibromyalgia is just a slap-on diagnosis when they can't find anything else. And if you're okay with that, you've stopped hunting for your source. So here's how fibromyalgia. So I want more for you. So if you're agitated, stop being agitated because I'm actually on your side and I want more for you. I just want you to get an answer because this is how fibromyalgia goes. Fibromyalgia goes, oh, you don't feel good? Awesome. Let's run you through the tests. Oh, you ran all the tests? Everything's negative. Yeah, but I really don't feel good. I really, really don't feel good. Okay, I guess you have fibromyalgia. It's called a diagnosis of exclusion. You exclude everything else. And when nothing's there, you're called fibromyalgia. Now, some people are like, oh, this is great. I finally have a name for it. And they go on a fibromyalgia like Facebook group and TikTok group, and they feel very supported. But in essence, you have stopped the search for why you're not feeling good. And not only have you stopped the search, but from this point forward, every time you go to another provider and tell people you have fibromyalgia, they're looking at you differently. And I know that for a fact because all my friends are in medicine. They're looking at you differently. They're like, oh God, fibromyalgia, I roll. They're not going to look for the reason. Anytime you say, I have a headache, I'm like, well, what do you expect? It's your fibromyalgia. It's diagnostically, you've just shut the door on any possibility of ever getting an answer. And then the medication that's offered is symptomatic. Oh, you're depressed, you have pain, here's some antidepressants. Oh, your muscles are spasming, here's muscle relaxers. So what are they offering you that it is the most disempowering diagnosis? So I'm going to say again what I said earlier. You don't feel well. They can't find anything. They want to call it fibromyalgia. Thank you so much, doc. You're amazing. I love you. Go search somewhere else. You are either pre-disease. There's two options here. You're either pre-disease, right? You're on your way to autoimmune, or you're differently diseased, which is chronic Lyme, mold, stomach issues, all right, dysbiosis. So you're either pre-disease and they haven't caught it yet, or you're differently diseased and they're never going to test you for that. So don't accept it. Keep going.
And when you have patients who have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia before in the past, and they come to you and you have this empowering, stance to really find the source and to find solutions, what kind of protocol would you, I mean, I'm sure everyone's a little unique, but what would you like do with a fibromyalgia patient?
Everything I just told you, they're no different. Fibromyalgia doesn't mean anything to me. I'm starting over from the beginning, listening to the whole story from the beginning. It's meaningless. It's all you just said is I don't feel good, which is everything we just talked about.
Do you ever find emotional blocks contribute to some of the pains or aches or just that feeling of not feeling well? Like it could be something or harboring anger, frustration, or lack of fulfillment, anything like that that's a little bit more less tangible in the lifestyle factor, but a lot to do with the feelings that the body is creating?
Yes, but not only is it a mindset issue, but it's actually technically a mind issue. So what do I mean by that, right? So mindset is part of it, but the type of patient that's already made their way to me is highly motivated and really is willing to do the thing, and tends not to have, I mean, we all have emotional blocks, but they're really willing to work through it. So it's more complicated than mindset or emotional blocks. But for some people who have been ill for so long, they're actually wired to be in a constant state of unwellness. So it's more than just like I need talk therapy and mindset. There's actual retraining of the brain needs to happen. So for some of my most complex patients, they really need to go through retraining of the brain, whether it's, vagal therapy. It's just, they're stuck in a flight or fight response chemically in their body. So it's so much more than just a mindset issue. Like there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle without question.
Yeah, amazing. If someone's listening today and they're feeling pretty healthy and you just want to help someone optimize their health, and obviously maybe their nutrition's already a good check mark, are there any like tools or biohacking or just practices that you like to incorporate in your life that make you and or your patients feel better?
Absolutely. Intermittent fasting it's like the staple. It should be part of your life. Just like a quick understanding that what happens in intermittent fasting during the time of the fast, what happens to you, it's the state of anti-inflammation. It is a state of anti-aging. It is a state of repair. It is a state of insulin sensitivity. So having that as part of your daily routine, hours where your body is just cleaning up, where your body is just like fixing its insulin resistance, where your body is in an anti-inflammatory state is magic, and it's free. It's the lack of eating. It's free. It's just there for you to take, right? So intermittent fasting, I'm a big fan of 16-8. And then
Great.
Obviously, eating
Before
from
you
the
move on, can you just explain for the listeners who might not be familiar what 16:8 refers to?
16:8 is eating for 8, fasting for 16. And before you panic, that includes your sleeping time. So example, you start at 11, you finish at 7, and then you don't eat again till the next day 11. So it includes your sleeping time. 16 hours, you can achieve that state where magical things are happening. If you've never fasted before, do not try to go to 16 hours tomorrow. You won't feel well. Start at 12, go to 12 and a half, move slow. There's no rush. You've not been fasting all these years. What's the difference if it takes you a few weeks to get there, right? So that's intermittent fasting, your food choices, without question, making sure your last meal is 3 hours before you go to bed. Don't go to sleep with a full belly. You're not going to sleep well. Maximize your sleep. If you are not sleeping well, I don't care what kind of gluten-free ice you're eating. If you're not sleeping well, your health is not on point. Lack of sleep is causative for dementia and Alzheimer's. You have to sleep at least 7 hours, 7 to 9 hours, good solid sleep. So that means get rid of your electronics. Don't watch the news before you go to bed. Do what it takes to get silence in your room, whether it's white noise maker, whatever you got to do to get it, to get silent. If your partner snores, after they fall asleep, go to a different room, do what you got to do to get that sleep in, and move. You have to move. And I say move, I don't say exercise. If you're lucky enough and your body can exercise, awesome. But for many of us, it's just about moving. Move, go around the block, go down to the stop sign, go down your driveway because you never went down a driveway, and just move a little more the next day. Just move. That's what you got to do. It's the most basic thing.
Well, I love these notes, and especially having these kind of rituals in your day to, balance both the nutrition and the moving and these beautiful things that we can do. And I think it's also this quest to just not settle, like you mentioned that, like, we don't have to accept feeling unwell as we age as part of just the human condition. There's something we can optimize. There's maybe something that is being not discovered that we can like improve and stuff. And so I love that kind of quest for self-improvement, both in the mindset, but also through the body and the physical realm. So Dr. E, where can people learn more about you, learn more about your book? Please share a little bit more about your book and your website.
Sure. So it's The New Method, new spelled with a K, because you always knew there was a better way. And we're everywhere. Twitter, Threads, Facebook. I'm sorry, not Twitter. Why did I say Twitter? I'm never on Twitter. Threads, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're rocking on TikTok. We have our own podcast. If you go on thenewmethod.com, you can get the book also. Just anywhere, you'll find us. And if you, send a message, my team will answer. There's also ways how to book a consult if you want a consult. But if not, I produce a lot of free content for those of you who don't want a consult. Just enjoy the content. Do what you got to do to get better. And I think I covered it.
Amazing. I think you're my first guest who's mentioned their Threads account. So that points us in a time in history. Amazing, Dr. E. Well, we'll be sure to include all those links in the show notes. Please go follow and continue getting this incredible advice. And thank you so much for being on the show today.
Awesome. It was an honor. Thank you for allowing me to be here.